Now, Mark Gatiss and Ian Hallard were married in 2008. They've worked together on screen, including in Sherlock, the massively successful Leviathan of a BBC series, which Mark co-created. But for the first time, they're appearing on stage together. It's a play that in its day was absolutely groundbreaking. It tells the story about a group of gay friends meeting for a birthday party in New York City.
Yeah, and the Upper East Side. The Boys in the Band was first released in 1968 off Broadway, and then in 1970 actually became a movie directed by William Friedkin. Now, this took place in 1968, months before the Stonewall riots, when homosexuality was still illegal in the US. Mark, Ian, good afternoon.
Hey.
Hello. Hello.
Welcome to Afternoon Edition.
Thank you very much.
Now, working together for the first time on stage. Good grief. Seeing enough of each other, aren't you?
I was doing an interview this morning with the Yorkshire Post, and the chap said, I can't imagine spending that much time with my partner. He said, how do you do it? I said, well, because we love each other.
Which probably made him curl up and die inside.
Yeah, exactly. He's on the phone to a lawyer now.
Well, the thing is, we're not actually it doesn't feel like we're spending that much time together, are we? Because you're not in the first half.
Yes.
And then the second half, we're just doing the play. So it's not as if we're sort of sitting around chatting
because
about...
I mean, if we're on the road for 5 years,
Yes.
it would be like the...
Start a band.
Depends.
Do a Proclaimers cover band.
It's fine so far, I have to say.
Yeah, that's it. If you're touring, yeah, it's a different story maybe. Because Mark, you play the birthday boys, don't you? And Ian, you are the man who's organising the birthday
The hostess
surprise.
with the
That's
mostest.
right,
Yeah.
Exactly right. Take us back to when this play first came out, Ian, and just how significant it was in 1968.
Yeah, it was. It was astonishing, shocking and profoundly groundbreaking, simply because it was the first time that gay men had been presented on stage as themselves without being... I mean, Tennessee Williams' plays previously had presented a kind of coded version where if gay characters were mentioned explicitly at all, they were off stage or they died or something like that, or they were women kind of cast as the gay roles, but coded. So Mark Crowley, who's the playwright who's been over for the last 2 weeks and has been heavily involved in the whole production, he kind of saw it as a bit of a challenge to actually write a play that had an entire cast of gay men who were interacting and were a community there in their own right. So, and it hadn't been done before.
At a time when, of course, you had to be secret about that life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's easy to take everything for granted these days. But Simon Callow was there on press night. He was saying he saw the original production when it came to London in '69, and he said it was just astonishing to hear some of the things that were said in the play, and also just to see these men just being themselves, not having to be coded, as Ian says, or anything like that, but just gay life as it is lived, And the thing is, the play, for a long time, had to sort of struggle with being the gay play and had to kind of represent everything, which is always impossible. So people said it was too negative, but now it just feels like the right time to do it again and actually see it both in its context and also to see how much has stayed the same. I mean, I can't tell you how many people we've had come to see the show, young and old, older gay men who saw it originally, who for whom it sort of changed their lives. Lots of younger gay people saying, well, I was at that party last week, and,
Right.
And I think people just remain the same. And what you can see now is that The Boys in the Band is just a really great play. And
But it's still relevant, Mark,
Yes,
isn't it?
it is.
Today,
I'm afraid
incredibly
it is,
relevant,
yeah.
where men and women are forced to live double lives. And still, we can't take it for granted that this battle for equal rights hasn't been won.
Not at all. I mean, that's the big, the price of it is constant vigilance. And you imagine that all these incredible things have changed, equal marriage and the age of consent, but also there are lots of parts of the world where it's actually lethal to be gay now, where it wasn't even 5 or 10 years ago. Legislation can be rolled back in a matter of months.
India, it happened in India.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, literally, India made a massive step forward and then a huge step back, and we just have to keep fighting. And that's why it's great to do a show like this, to sort of show people how it used to be, but also what still, unfortunately, still rings very true.
I mean, it's 50 years on, but it still completely resonates.
And it's still, though, Ian, it's still quite controversial, isn't it, even among the gay community? Because I was reading reviews of it at the time and up to now in different magazines, and some people absolutely love it. And other people say it's, Uncle Tom. It's one guy actually described it as a minstrel show. All of these kind of self-deprecating, almost self-loathing gay men, they thought it set a very bad example. What do you think?
Well, I think that's kind of always been a part of gay culture, really. I mean, and it's absolutely with its contemporary equivalent, for example, the day of RuPaul's Drag Race, where you've got a whole load of gay men who undercut that kind of sense of I don't know, just the way they interact, the way they socialise, the way they speak to each other actually does involve quite a lot of camp comments, or it can do. But I think there's a whole range of gay characters within the play. There's the very effeminate Emery, but then you've got a more sort of straight acting couple. And I think sometimes gay drama gets held up to a sort of higher standard than other sort of theatre or other parts in that way, simply because in terms of representation, Russell T Davies, for example, has a problem with this whenever any of his work is produced, that he inevitably gets LGBT people saying, oh, well, I'm not like that, and this character isn't like me, and this doesn't represent me, and you turn around and say, well, it's not trying to, and how could it?
It's like the Asian family in EastEnders has to represent all Asians.
Absolutely, it's exactly the same thing. And I think sometimes, whether it's ethnic or sexual or gender minorities, for whatever reason, characters like that example get brought into a soap or a continuing drama, and then actually the producers kind of slightly lose their nerve and don't really know what to do with them, because they don't want them to be controversial in any way, so they end up being bland, and then they get written out again after a few.
I mean, true measure of success is that there is a proper diaspora of characters, whether from racial minorities or sexual minorities, and then you actually feel like you're emboldened enough to actually make a gay person into the villain without everyone saying, well, of course he's the villain because he's gay, or it's that is true progress. But at the same time, it's very. We're here talking about a particular play and 9 particular characters, and this is a slice of their life. It doesn't have to represent everything.
Quite. I mean, I love the description in What's on Stage of your character, Mark, as the arch queer with a sneer.
I don't read reviews.
Which is I don't read. I write them because it sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. The arch queer with a sneer.
On a T-shirt. That is quite good.
It's great, isn't it? The arch queer with a sneer.
I get Boris Karloff to narrate it.
But I think it's also the fact that there's a real sense of community between these characters as well, and they make each other laugh as well. And I think sometimes within all the talk about the angst of the play and how bleak it might have been or might be now, you actually kind of forget how funny it is.
Yes,
and the first half of the play is effectively a farce where they're trying to kind of keep their sexuality a secret from the visiting character, the figure from the past. And I think a lot of people come to see the show, particularly if they only know the film, which has got a slightly darker reputation. Are just astonished at how many laughs there are in it, and they're kind of they're crying with laughter in the first half, and then with other emotions in the second.
Well, it was made by William Friedkin, wasn't it?
Yes, it's pre Exorcist.
Exorcist, yeah, but I couldn't
like to
believe
think it's the
it.
film that got him.
He apparently looks back on it with great joy. Says
Yes.
it's one of the only ones he can watch back and not feel really angry about.
Well, I think it's a brilliant film. I saw it when I was about 12 or 13, and it had a profound effect on me. It's a beautifully made film, but I think it does start very dark. And so it's easy to sort of miss where the laughs are. I mean, it's funny, Ian's invoking RuPaul's Drag Race, which we do every day. But there are, you look at that's a very much an absolutely up to the minute version of a gay community in which they call it throwing shade and reading each other. They're very sarcastic and very cutting. But it's remarkable. Almost every episode, I am in tears because of the rather messed up lives a lot of the contestants have had, and that there is a genuine sense of bonding and community between them. And I think that is the sort of gay family that we've always talked about. And the play definitely represents that. There's a lot of people here thrown together in the late 60s in adversity who forge a kind of family of their own.
And the universality of the play is that, of course, in any social gathering, there are secrets and lies and layers and deception. And this is voyeurism, isn't it, for us watching it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Intense voyeurism watching it. And
and people feel that, I mean, the venue we're at the moment at Park, but also the other venues that we're going to have got quite an intimate feel. The Lowry and Salford and Theatre or Brighton, maybe a bit bigger, but West Yorkshire Playhouse, where we're playing there as well. So hopefully people are feeling like they're part of the party, and they're sort of drawn into it as well.
I just wanted to ask you about, because we're talking about those times back then, as we were saying, when it was still illegal in the US to be gay, and then Stonewall happened and all the things since. But I was reading Matthew Todd's book, Straight Jacket. Have you read that?
Yes.
Okay. And we were supposed to interview him and something went wrong. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to him, but hopefully we will again soon. But that idea that he thought that he'd long since dealt with his demons surrounding his sexuality, and he sort of in the book reveals what he says is the crisis of shame facing the gay community. Is that something that you two recognise?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's incredibly pertinent, and I think that's why the play itself is so relevant, because although we say, yes, of course, things are so much better, it's astonishing the progress we've made. I think the thing you can't underestimate is the fact that every LGBT child grows up generally in a heterosexual environment. So they, from an early age, when they first recognise their sexuality, they're acknowledging that something is different. They are outside the norm. And of course, that's never going to change. That's just the way life is. But I think it's also acknowledging how that actually has an impact on people's mental health at any stage in their life when they first realise that and later on. And I volunteer for Switchboard, the LGBT plus helpline. So I speak to people on most weeks who are still coming to terms with their sexuality, and Matthew's book absolutely sort of hits the nail on the head in terms of those sort of ongoing journeys that people make.
Well,
everybody's different, aren't they? Everyone has an individual experience and an individual take on it all, and you can't just generalise because things have actually improved in so many areas, and in a metropolitan bubble where you think everyone can just come out at school and have massive support, and it's a fallacy, really.
I mean, again, and that is astonishing. My old senior school, where I wouldn't have dreamed of being able to come out or tell anyone, and an incredibly horrible old homophobic Latin teacher giving us a lecture about how unhygienic it was this one day. And now my old senior school has an LGBT society, and the headmaster is giving talks about it, and that
about how unhygienic
it is,
in Latin.
And then and I always think, when I look at Ireland as well, becoming the first country to fully endorse gay marriage, and yet it was the most religious conservative country in Europe for many years.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Things have really changed. It's so brilliant to be talking to you. We've got plenty more with Mark and Ian coming up after the news and sport. Mark Gatiss and Ian Hallard is who you're listening to, talking a little bit about the boys in the band. Can't wait till that comes to the Lowry down the road from us.
Yes, Sherlock as well, League of Gentlemen. It'll all be discussed there, and you'll hear our exclusive interview, one of the only women in the world to have given birth following a womb transplant. A womb transplant, the womb coming from her own sister, and it's an extraordinary story. And
Ramesh Ranganathan is going to be our big guest after 3:30 today.
Yeah, he's that Asian provocateur, but this time not in Sri Lanka, this time in America. And if you haven't seen the first one, you need to see it. His mum is
a legend.
First for news and the best live sport. This is BBC 5 Live.
It's 2 o'clock on 5 Live. This is Afternoon Edition with Nihal Arthanaika and Sarah Brett. Our main story, ministers are facing more pressure from MPs over Brexit.
In sport, England are set 278 to win the third ODI against Bangladesh.
This is BBC 5 Live.
With the news at 2 o'clock, the government is facing renewed pressure to set out its Brexit strategy to MPs before formal talks start with the EU. Labour is staging a Commons debate calling for proper scrutiny of discussions. The government has promised Parliament will have an important role. Norman Smith is our assistant political editor.
What we seem to be getting today is the first real political flashpoint over Brexit, namely the role of Parliament, and the first indications of disquiet on Mrs May's own backbenches over her approach to Brexit.
A sandwich shop owner has been jailed for at least 27 years for murdering a 15-year-old customer in West Dunbartonshire. John Letham, who's 32, stabbed and slashed Paige Doherty more than 140 times when she stopped at his shop in Clydebank. Paige's mother is Pamela Munro.
There is no sentence high enough to justify what has happened, but we can now say there is one less evil man in this world, which then makes the world that bit more safe for our kids to grow up in. Paige is now safe and can finally rest in peace knowing justice has been served to a high standard.
The Kremlin has told Britain it has a duty to guarantee the safety of Russian diplomats on its territory. It's after the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson said yesterday that people should protest outside the Russian embassy about Moscow's involvement in the Syrian conflict. And the spending watchdog, the National Audit Office, is strongly criticising the government's effort to improve children's services in England. The NAO says the Department for Education has no idea why spending on child protection varies so much. The government says it's taking tough action to drive up standards. Dr. Ruth Allen is from the British Association of Social Workers.
What we're lacking is an overall strategy for improvement across all services. We need excellent children's services everywhere. We need consistency as well as needing innovation and new ideas.
Talks aimed at resolving the long-running dispute about the role of guards on Southern Railway trains have broken down after just a few hours. Members of the RMT union are holding a 3-day walkout. The Transport Secretary, Chris Grayling, is insisting the high-speed 2 rail link between London and the north will go ahead. The scheme will cost an estimated £55 billion. Mark Littlewood is from the free market think tank, the Institute of Economic Affairs.
If you really have got that amount of money swilling around to improve transport, spend it on a range of smaller, rather less eye-catching projects. It's just not value for money, and if it was, it would be the private sector providing these tens of billions, not the taxpayer and Chris Grayling.
Samsung has cut its expected third-quarter profit by a third. It's after announcing yesterday that it was ending production of its Galaxy Note 7 smartphone because of safety concerns. And there have been calls in Germany for 3 Syrian refugees to be given asylum and medals after they overpowered a suspected bomb plotter and turned him over to the police. The best-selling Daily Bild is calling them the heroes of Leipzig, the city where they detained Jabr al-Bakr. And Delith is here with some sport.
Nihal, thank you. Yes, starting with the cricket. In England, chasing 278 to win the third and final one-day international in Chittagong. They're 21 without loss in the 5th over. Simon Hughes is with me. How have England's batsmen started?
Very well, actually, so far. The key is that it's going to be easier to bat in the first 10 overs than it will be later, where the ball is turning and a little bit older and the pitch will start to grip. So they've got to kind of get the scoring rate really up in these first 10 overs. They're doing well. Sam Billings, a lot of people being maybe surprised that he's been sort of put into open because Jason Roy is injured. He is a guy of unbelievable talent. He's already shown it, but it's a tall order for England. They have to play really well out of their skin.
Thank you, Simon. We'll keep across at England 21 without loss in the 5th over. BBC Sport understands that Steve McLaren will be appointed Derby's new manager later today, nearly 18 months after he was sacked by the club. Current caretaker Chris Powell will be his assistant. Scotland captain Greg Laidlaw is to leave Gloucester at the end of the season to join French side Clermont-Auvergne, while the Scotland fullback Stuart Hogg has signed a new 2-year deal with Glasgow that will keep him at the club until May 2019. And Andy Murray leads Steve Johnson by a set to love in the second round of the Shanghai Masters.
This is BBC 5 Live on digital, online, smartphone and tablet.
Right, the weather. Eastern parts of the UK will continue to see showers piling in from the North Sea with a chilly wind, and while a couple of showers may spread into central areas, elsewhere it will remain mostly dry with sunny spells. Little change overnight, but with a stronger wind on Thursday. Showers perhaps more widespread across Scotland, northern England and the Midlands. Brighter spells in the south, but feeling chilly for all of us. Now from the skies to the roads. The M4 in Berkshire is still closed in both directions between junction 8/9 for Maidenhead and junction 10 for Wokingham. A lorry overturned and there's stationary traffic trapped between the two junctions. And delays on the M25 anti-clockwise. The right-hand Dartford tunnel is closed and there's congestion back to junction 2 for the A2. That's the Darrenth interchange. That's because of a broken down vehicle. In Gloucestershire, the M48 eastbound exit Slip Road is closed because of an accident at junction 1. That's for the A403. In Kent, the M20 London bound is blocked because of animals on the road between junction 5 for Aylesford and junction 6 for Chatham.
5 Live Sport. Darren Campbell's Get Inspired.
If it wasn't for the likes of Linford Christie, Carl Lewis and Michael Jordan inspiring me, there's no way I'd be Olympic champion. But for champions of the future, this summer, they were spoilt for choice.
Sarah Story is Great Britain's most successful Paralympian of the modern era. A first gold medal for a man in the pool. In 28 years, Adam Peaty's won gold.
As we bask in the glory of an amazing sporting summer, join me, Darren Campbell, for my new show as we catch up with some of our Rio heroes, the people behind their success and those they've inspired.
Darren Campbell's Get Inspired
on 5 Live Sport this Thursday from 8:30.
It's afternoon edition. Thank you very much for being with us. It's Sarah Nahal until 4 o'clock, and our guests for the next wee while are Mark Gatiss and Ian Hallard. Afternoon to you again, gentlemen.
Hello.
So when you got married in 2008, which probably, look at you, can't see you smiling at each other. That's so sweet.
Oh, God, I didn't realise you could see
Yeah, we can see you smiling at each other.
Yes.
So cute.
So all those rude gesticulations you were making while we were talking, we picked all of those up.
There was
Did
actually
you know that you could see them?
Yeah.
Wow. See, I've had my back to the screen. Okay.
I found my light as soon as I got in.
Mark's wearing a fabulous polo neck.
I'm
Big,
going to the
white,
Antarctic later.
chunky,
Yeah.
very Shackleton. yeah, even better. So I was reading stuff about it, and you were sort of going to do something quite low key, and then what was it that a friend said to you that turned things around in terms of the big day?
Well, yeah, I suppose I was always haunted by, I remember when Neil Kinnock and Roy Hattersley launched the Labour Rose, and it was the beginning of New Labour and everything. And I remember the press saying it was like a gay marriage, and that sort of pejorative version of it has sort of hung around for years. They still say it actually in a rather sneery way. They did it when Nick Clegg and David Cameron had their press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a slight whiff of homophobia about it. But I think I was just afraid of it looking like, two pink Rolls Royces connected by poodles or something. And eventually we talked about it so much that a friend of ours said, "You sound like you're sort of apologising for it." And after that, the flood broke, and we came up. We walked up the aisle to the theme from Upstairs, Downstairs, and our dog was the ring bearer. We just kind of went from
And where did you find two pink Rolls Royces from then?
No, we didn't do it.
I didn't go quite that far.
But you did have an opera singer.
We did.
Yeah, singing show tunes.
Magical.
And Steve Pemberton from the League of Gentlemen read an Aboriginal love poem that began, "In my imagination there is no complication. I dream about you all the time." And at which people started laughing. And
those who got it.
The gays in the room realised that it was. By the time you got to "I should be so lucky."
Even Now's got it now.
Exactly, even then. But some maiden aunts were shooting evil glares at the people sniggering at this gorgeous piece of Aboriginal love poetry.
Fabulous.
So, Ian, when did you realise Mark was the man for you?
We were just
on that day.
Oh, is it an arranged marriage? Was it?
I'm hoping one day to have that realisation.
I refer you back to your question about touring together.
Well, fairly early on, wasn't it? We were fairly keen.
You told me.
You're so sweet.
And what was it?
Honestly.
What was it about him?
He made me laugh.
That's a very good shout. Yeah.
It wasn't just that.
Got it.
But I don't know.
No, it's one of the most.
It's 2:10 in the afternoon. I don't know how many details.
Yeah, this is a family
here.
show. Yeah. Okay.
I'm staying on safe territory.
But then making the decision to get married in anyone's
Well, actually,
life.
it was a civil partnership. We haven't actually upgraded, have we?
You haven't upgraded?
No.
We just haven't got around to it, have we?
No.
Because originally we talked about it when Ken Livingstone brought in his kind of registration thing that you could just do in London before it was and we kind of thought, well, we'll hang on until there is actually something sort of legal to do about it. But we will at some point, won't we? It's not as if we've got some
It depends
big
if you get a
political...
free glass of champagne and a better seat. I don't know.
Well, we know we've got some. I mean, we know some people who just love a party so much. I think they've done the Kevin Livingstone version, the civil partnership, then the marriage, and
they got
whatever,
divorced for the party. And
And if you do it again, then of course you can have the two pink limos.
Yes,
of your
finally.
dreams.
And an even bigger party.
Well, the thing is, when people have said, "Oh, are you going to actually sort of get married then?" And the civil partnership, we always talked about it as the wedding and getting married then, and it was just such a perfect, brilliant day, and we've lost family members since then, so it's so no, we wouldn't want to repeat it at all.
Do people talk about it being the best wedding that they've ever been to?
My brother said it was the best wedding he'd ever been to, and that means a lot to me.
Brilliant.
And also, we were married at Middle Temple, and by complete coincidence, they having even had these ceremonies for quite a number of years, they hadn't noticed that you actually essentially get married beneath the portrait of Sir Edward Carson QC, the man who prosecuted Oscar Wilde, which was a fantastic irony. So
Why?
I flicked the V's at him.
Did anybody catch that on the camera?
I don't know. I don't think so. I can restage that.
Yes, it did. Listen, Mark, we recently spoke to Rhys Shearsmith, who said that he would like to do something to mark the anniversary of the TV debut of League of Gentlemen. Have a listen to this.
We do want to do something, and we certainly have got the will to do it. And I think we should mark it. Yes, I think it will. There'll be some form of a of a celebration.
There you go. You're roped into that one, kid.
No, we do. The thing is, we've got so many anniversaries to do. Next year is the 20 years since we won the Perrier Award.
That's right.
2019 is the 20 years since the first episode was shown. So we'd love to do. We've never split up. We're like ABBA. We've just drifted. And
although ABBA are not going to get back together, so not exactly the same.
Let me just tell you a little thing about that, Ian. We met Bjorn at the Eurovision in Stockholm this year.
Oh, yes.
And he didn't completely and utterly rule it out. And they have appeared on the same stage together since, you know.
Listen, don't tell me about this. So I came home a few months ago, opened the door to hear Ian sobbing, and I thought something dreadful had happened. And it turned out that it was actually he'd just been watching the footage of Agneta and Frida singing Like Old Friends Do to Benny and Bjorn, and he was distraught with happiness. It was the happiest day of his life.
No, the happiest day of my life was when I met Agneta.
That's true.
After our wedding.
Yeah.
You had to get that in. You had to get that in.
So it will be just a case then of you...
Are you gay?
Of you and the rest of the lads in League of Gentlemen just finding the right time, because you're all working quite a lot in the same area, obviously, at the same time.
Yes, we're going to meet up backstage somewhere.
Yes, exactly.
We're talking about it a lot, and it just what we'd really like to do, I suppose, is just sort of kick a few ideas around and see what comes out of it. I mean, you know, it's always slightly dangerous because people are extremely fond of it, and as ever with anything that's in the past, it's now safe and secure and classic. And as soon as you risk doing a new thing, it's a risk, you know. But I wouldn't like to come back and disappoint. But we'd love to do something, and I think we've still got a lot to say, and we'd love to work together again. It's been too long, really. So I don't know what it is or when it'll be, but we'd love to. Yeah.
Seeing as you seem to be in the mood for a bit of obfuscation, we'll carry on with that then.
Yeah, we will. We'll carry on that. We do, because quite often, Ian and Mark, we have stars on this show who are involved in TV projects they can tell us nothing about, right?
Yes,
Game of Thrones, Star Wars, Rogue One, that kind of thing, okay? Yeah. So we ask the questions, they can't answer them, so we thought we'd get all the questions about Sherlock out of the way in a brand new one-off feature.
Right.
And because we couldn't find music really associated with Mycroft, we decided to use the theme tune from Holmes Under the Hammer.
Get it?
Very good.
You see what we've done there? You see what we've done there? So let us start this one-off feature, Holmes Under the Hammer.
Question 1. Will this be the last series of Sherlock?
You have to answer, Mark.
Oh, I do.
You just
I see.
There's nothing to stop me answering.
I can't. I've no
Ian, you
idea.
answer. If he doesn't answer, you tell me, okay?
I've no idea.
Question number 2. Is Benedict Cumberbatch going to be coming back for another series, Mark?
I've no idea.
You've got to find a different answer. Could you ever replace Benedict Cumberbatch?
Oh, that's easy. Absolutely not. Never. Nor Martin Freeman.
Question number 4, Mark. Is Moriarty really dead?
Yes.
Oh, question number 5. Is Sherlock still in trouble for shooting Magnuson?
Wait and see.
Question number 6. Is Mrs. Hudson really addicted to marijuana?
No, she's not addicted. She has an occasional puff arthritis.
Purely for medicinal purposes.
Socially. Will we get question 7 to meet Sherlock and Mycroft's brother? That's a yes. Okay. Question 8.
What's Benedict like in real life?
Horrible. He's a delightful man. Delightful.
And question number 9 for all the Poldark fans. Will he get his top off in the new series?
Poldark, yes, I believe he will.
But he didn't so much this series, to be fair.
Oh, dear.
Can you tell us exactly what happens during every moment of the next series of Sherlock?
Yes, I can.
Good.
So, we open... Oh, they've cut me off.
Marvellous.
Oh,
just as successful as we knew it would be.
No, you got a couple of answers there.
We did quite well. If you play music under it, anything is possible. I wonder if we played I Should Be So Lucky under it, you'd probably have answered everything.
It's true.
Well,
we just start reciting our marriage vows again. Like a sort of Pavlovian response.
We could have played the winner takes it all and listen to Ian sob uncontrollably in the background.
In all honesty, though, having completed a 4th series, have you just finished filming recently?
No, we finished in August.
Finished in August, not that long ago. So what was the process like this time round? Can you tell us a little bit about just what it was like getting all back together and the new storylines, etc.
Well, it's always lovely. I mean, we do it every couple of years. We sort of accidentally fell into this pattern of doing it every few years, and it's now become how it is. I mean, to be absolutely frank, the original plan was to do 60-minute episodes, and the BBC then asked us if we could do it as 90-minute films, essentially, because that's what Wallander had done and that had worked. So that's what we agreed to, and so it's become that's its format, as it were. But I mean, we wouldn't be still making it if we were doing hour-long episodes, because Benedict and Martin have become too unavailable. So it kind of works perfectly if we can just. It's very difficult to get everyone back together, but if we can get everyone every couple of years and everyone's still up for it, then we'd love to carry on.
So
and it was I think this is the best series we've done. I think it's terrific.
Do you never say to Benedict, I made you a star, Cumberbatch, come back and...
Yes, but he's always on a plane and he can't hear me. No, not at all. Honestly, everyone is very aware of what the show has done for them. It's one of those things, it's sort of like bottle lightning. You can't quite work out why this confluence of casting and writing and timing has worked, but it just has, and you mustn't argue with it. It's just a once in a lifetime thing, I think, and I don't. There's a real love at the heart of the show, both from the audience and from us for Sherlock Holmes, and we'd love to carry on if we can. But all good things. Who knows?
And you write one episode per series?
I've written episode 1, and Steve Moffat wrote episode 2, and then we wrote episode 3 together, which is how we did the Christmas special as well, which was a great fun. And we sort of sat, at one stage we actually sat next to each other like Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder, sort of hammering on the keyboard.
Were you wearing that lovely white polo neck at the time?
Yes, I was wearing this white polo neck, actually.
We're going to take a quick cricket update. Stay with us, gentlemen.
I can tell you anything about cricket.
Charles Dagnall is watching England chasing 278.
Let the boys do it instead of me.
Go ahead, Mark.
England are 37 without loss. It's a solid, if unspectacular start from James Vincent Sam Billings, although Sam Billings has just hit a boundary now, moving him on to 22 and England on to 41 without loss off the bowling of Mashraf Mortaza's dribbly medium pace. It's going okay for England. They're chasing 278 to win, and currently they're 41 without loss in the 9th.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very
much, Charles. Mark, what is when you sit down to write, how involved do you get in this? Are you sitting there in the living room? Do you have to lock yourself away in a room to do it? Do you come and test everything out and say, what do you think of this, Ian?
Oh, yes, I do. I mean, I have a room at the top of the house with a locked door, special door. But I need silence. I've tried all those things. I can't listen to music. I sort of just need to get into a zone, really. But I've always, Ian's always been my unofficial script editor, really, and we've actually collaborated on some things. We wrote an episode of Poirot together a few years ago. So yeah, he's always been my outside eye.
How are you with criticism, considering at the top of this interview...
What is criticism?
Yeah, exactly. You said I don't read reviews. Well, then I guess it's worth Ian that question. Yes, Ian, how is Mark with criticism?
It depends who it's from. I mean, if it's from someone he respects, he responds to it very well. He always says that with notes and stuff from different sources if you're writing a script. If it's someone whose opinion you value and respect, then he absolutely takes on board. And we're actually quite lucky because we've got very similar tastes. And if we go and see something at the theatre, genuinely, if one of us likes it, the other will also like it for the same reason.
For instance, we love the boys in the band.
yeah, funny that. But then how do you deal with it? What is your stock in trade answer? Because, of course, when you go and see a play, by and large, I'm sure you know someone involved in it. They come up afterwards and ask you, what did you think, guys? If you didn't like it, do you have a stock in trade answer?
No, well, if I did, I wouldn't tell you what it is. When Alan Bennett wrote this wonderful little essay about Going Round, it's called, and he said that he always says marvellous, 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 and now he's let the cat out of the bag. He'll have to come up with another one. So.
No, but I think you've always got to be honest with people, because I wouldn't want anyone coming to see a show I was in and just because you can tell if they didn't really like it.
What you've got to do is on the night, as it were, straight afterwards, just be very positive. And actually, if you know the person well enough to be able to be frank with them, you can probably talk over the next few days. But on the night when you come off stage feeling a bit raw, and wanting to be just patted on the head.
Yes.
Why don't you do that? That's just a human response.
I think you're so right.
And there's always
It's a
something nice
humanitarian
you can find to say about a show.
Except, oh no, go on.
Marvellous.
Marvellous.
Talking about shows, actually, I should just say this only because obviously we're at the Park Theatre with Boys in the Band at the moment, but we've just sort of seen today, our producers have just been tweeting that we are now practically sold out, other than the odd returns. So the only opportunity to see it now, if people want to, is to see it on tour. So
it is
London
going on tour, isn't it? It's going to be
at
the
Over
Lowry
at
in
the
Manchester.
Lowry. We're looking at the Lowry right now.
Oh, yeah.
It'll suit
we
you
were up there a few
beautifully.
weeks ago.
Were
yeah.
you?
Yeah, Salford, and then Brighton, Theatre Royal, and then Leeds. So we've got...
He's very good, isn't he?
You see?
It is,
Has to be
so on message.
That's the
It's
point,
a
isn't it?
relentless bit of plugging.
Got to do it.
Listen, what was it like then writing together for Poirot? Did you both have kind of competing ideas of the way the mystery should go?
No, I mean, we're huge Agatha Christie fans, and it was so I did Cat Among the Pigeons at the Halloween party, and then this one called The Big Four, which I'd always wanted to do because it was a problem one. It's an early book. She wrote it just after her disappearance, and it's a bit of a disaster, she admitted. So, but it's kind of crazy. It's sort of like a Bond novel with Poirot in it. It actually ends in a sort of hollowed out mountain in Switzerland.
Really?
Also, so we sort of did our best to rope it into.
It was all right, though, wasn't it? I kind of sort of did the structure, and you sort of did the dialogue, and you were working on Reichenbach Fall at the same time, weren't you?
That's right.
And so it was a crazy time, but we just sort of passed the drafts back and forth between us. And if there were little bits that one of us were attached to and the other one didn't like, one of us would change it, and then it'd go back to the other, and then it'd come back, and that line had been put back in, and eventually we resolved it. But we were pretty much on the same page.
It was good fun, and it was an extraordinary thing. I was actually in Poirot when we were leading up to getting married, and
the show,
and David Suchet, the night before we were filming, and he came and sort of blessed me in character. This has now got out into one of those stories where it looks like he officiated at our wedding dressed
Well,
as
that's what I was going to say, because that's in a lot of the papers.
I know, it's unbelievable. It's one of those, I won't be able to get rid of it now.
It was literally, wasn't it? It was the Friday, and people were saying, "What are you doing for the weekend?" You said, "Oh, I'm getting married."
Yeah.
And David Suchet said, "Oh, have a wonderful time."
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I felt like I've been blessed by Poirot," which has now sounded like we hired David Suchet in costume to officiate at our civil ceremony.
It was lovely because in a way it was sort of like all my Sunday nights, patting me on the head, and it was very sweet of him. And he was just getting into his car in the full costume, and I thought, this is the strangest moment you can imagine. Talking about not having a camp wedding.
Talking of Bond, I think you would make a great Bond villain, Mark, wouldn't you?
I can only agree with you. I'd love to, of course I would. Who wouldn't? I adore James Bond. When Steve Moffat and I occasionally go out for dinner strictly to not talk about Doctor Who and Sherlock, and we always end up talking about James Bond. It's our third thing. So I love it.
You'd have to outdo Javier Bardem's menacing campness.
He was brilliant, wasn't he?
He was absolutely brilliant.
I thought they did there's an extraordinary moment in that. You remember when he's caressing Daniel Craig's thighs, and he says, "What makes you think it's my first time?" I mean, even though he was an Eton schoolboy, that's an extraordinarily progressive thing for James Bond to do.
Very suggestive, and it was really interesting that Daniel Craig obviously, doesn't flinch with anything, and he didn't flinch with that. But it was just really interesting to see the interplay, the chemistry.
After what they did to his nether quarters, he no longer flinches at anything.
There's no sensation there at all. I think.
Well, I hope he does another one. I think he's making very positive noises again, which doesn't surprise me. But I think he's been a fantastic James Bond, and then it'll be interesting. I imagine.
Who would you like to see be the next Bond?
Well, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's a bit like Doctor Who. Sometimes there's an obvious candidate in the ether, and other times there's lots of possible ones. I don't think there's an obvious one at the moment, but I imagine what they'll do. So I like to think Daniel Craig is the sort of Genet Bond, the kind of broken-nosed pugilist version. They'll probably go for someone tall, dark, and handsome again. I think because you need
the Pierce Brosnan.
You need to have a sort of strong change from the previous one, so it doesn't feel diluted.
I guess,
but I don't think we're looking at it for about another 3 or 4 years, maybe.
I guess that's Aidan Turner territory, is it?
Well, he's very young still, isn't he? So he could be just about right. Depends if he, ever keeps his shirt on.
Or Idris Elba. Cool.
Going a bit left field, why do you collect fossils of... Is it trilobites?
Trilobites.
Trilobites. Why
don't you?
More pertinently, why don't you? Yeah. How do you get into that, trilobites? Explain what they are first for people who don't know.
Well, they're the most successful form of arthropod life, marine arthropod life that's ever lived. They were an extinct species of marine creature. They look like woodlice. They're my favourite fossil. I collected fossils from when I was a child, and I at one point wanted to be a paleontologist, but they've always been my favourites.
More than ammonites?
Oh, yes, ammonites are common.
Wow.
Yes. No, they're very
Fossil
pretty,
collecting snobbery on 5 Live.
Yeah, but there was where I lived. I lived in a geological area which was from the Permian era, and that's when trilobites became extinct. And I was sort of obsessed with finding one of my own, but there was nowhere near. And then the nearest other very sort of abundant place was Whitby, which is Jurassic and is ammonite full, etc. So I became slightly obsessed.
Didn't he? You could hear it.
But now, and then we went on a holiday once to Monmouthshire, and Ian had to suffer me sitting in this wet quarry for hours and hours.
I suffered.
Yeah.
This is my next
I take it that wasn't a first date.
No.
That would have been extraordinary.
After he'd got his hooks into him, that was it. But you must have suffered quite a bit in that way, Ian, over the years, because Mark has got quite a lot of childhood obsessions that he follows up on. Is that fair to say?
Well, most of them are my career.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, sorry, you shouldn't knock him.
Like Doctor Who.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's one of the things on the day we met. Remember, he did ask me who my doctor was, and because Mark's was John Pertwee, and he was gutted when I said Peter Davison. He was like, well, it could have at least been Tom Baker. Not because of the quality of the doctor, just because of the respective age.
I know, that made me feel very old. And Peter's one of the great doctors, I think.
He is, yeah, absolutely. We spoke to him on the programme last week. Now, he was the doctor of my time too. Although I once crashed a trolley into Tom Baker accidentally in a supermarket in a place called Headcorn.
Did he swear?
No, he did not, but he looked at me witheringly.
Oh.
And that was enough to just ruin my day.
Withered by the doctor.
So listen, guys, when you finish Boys in the Band, what is next for both of you? Do you know yet what is on? I mean, you must be just coming down with stuff. Ian?
Coming down with the gold.
Yeah. Well, we've got Mark's birthday celebrations.
Most importantly. Is that a big one?
It's on Monday, yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
How old are you on Monday? Are we allowed to ask?
30.
Of course you are, darling.
Anyone who knows when John Pertwee was Doctor Who can have a wild stab at the age.
50. I'm 50 on Monday.
How are you
gosh,
feeling
it's a big
about being
50?
50?
Isn't that extraordinary? When I was a kid, my dad joined this group called the 50 Club. And I remember thinking it was impossibly old. Now I just think, he was that age then. Isn't that weird?
So it's strange. He's been celebrating his birthday on a nightly basis in the play. And,
yes, Jack Durges is my present. So
yes,
think on.
Yeah.
With an extraordinary wig, it has to be said.
Do you have any feelings about turning 50? Is it just another birthday?
I have no feelings left, unlike Daniel Craig's nether regions. There's nothing left of me.
He's numb.
No, I don't mind.
It's the quote of the show.
It's better than the alternative, as a wise man said. I don't mind. I quite like I don't like sort of physically creaking and stuff, but I don't mind. What's the alternative?
Is there a big do planned, Mark?
I'm going to do something in November because we're actually doing
the
the
middle
show,
of it,
so something will happen.
What a guest list! You're going to have to annoy some people by not inviting them, aren't you? That's a difficult.
It's just me, some trilobites, and a
David
Doll's tea service officiated by David Suchet and Peter Davison. Yeah. And then I'm having the rest of the year off. I'm writing a few things, but I just want to have a bit of a break.
Wow.
And Ian...
And I'm off to play Widow Twankey.
Is doing panto, yes.
So
who else is in the cast?
You get to do Widow Twankey and he gets to have a year off.
He gets to have a
year
off.
Couple of months, yeah. Who else is in the cast?
Of the panto?
Yeah.
It's some of the guys that I worked with last year. It's not a big celeb panto, which is nice. It's kind of it's a rep panto. So we haven't we haven't got the latest Celebrity Big Brother reject or someone from The Only Way Is Essex or anything like that. Now that's my snobbery coming through.
Yeah.
But no, just some good old fashioned turns. My very good friend Matthew, who I did Ugly Sister with last year, we're sparring opposite each other again, so we'll have a huge amount of fun. That'll be a great laugh.
Great. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you
very much
for speaking to us on the afternoon edition. And the Boys in the Band is showing at the Park Theatre and also going to be going on tour.
Hooray, up here and in, where did you say, Brighton?
Brighton Theatre Royal and the West Yorkshire Playhouse in Leeds.
Magic. Ian Hallard and Mark Gatiss, thank you very much.
Thank you.